Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Now, good evening and welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. It's MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. this evening, bringing you the latest from the Midlands and further afield from the worlds of food, farming and agri-business, as always, on a Wednesday evening, 11th of March 2026. And as you heard on the weather there, up and down, march of many weathers, as they say, and that's certainly what we're having at the moment. Now, this evening, in a moment, Dennis Drennan from the ICMSA chats to me about blue tongue, BVD compensation, TB, calf prices, milk prices, you name it. We're going around the houses on a few different areas with Dennis in a moment. Later in the programme, I'm going to be speaking to Lorcan Roach Kelly from the Irish Farmers Journal about the Middle East conflict and the effect on prices globally. Also, land mobility is up for discussion. Patrick Brady from the Land Mobility Service speaks about their offerings and how our tax-free incentives for long-term leasing, we're the only country in Europe doing that. It's a key to keeping land moving. Finally this evening, Teagasc Grass 10. There have two events in the Midlands this week on our doorstep here in Tullamore on Friday and tomorrow, Thursday, in Glasson. Nicky Kennedy from Teagasc will give us a rundown on those walks. You may be familiar with the farm of Conor McGrath. He's Clonminch, Tullamore. He has the grass on the bypass, it's called. It's there on the Clonminch exit. If you are driving past Tullamore, taking the roundabouts on the bypass past Tullamore, it's always really well stocked, with 20 odd acres there, dry stock, it's paddocked, there's water troughs, and there's always a multitude of stock on it during the grazing season. So that's where that's on. That's going to be an interesting one. Lots of people are going to visit that because it's so well known. We're going to hear more about it in a little bit. Now, text me, WhatsApp me, 083 30 10 103. As I said, starting this evening on dairy, and we have Dennis Drennan from the ICMSA. Dennis, you're finished milk and you're trying to spread slurry. You're busy this time of the year. Of course you are, 11th of March. How is calving going for you, Dennis, and the spring season?
Yeah, calving's going pretty good. I'm down to the last, had a really good, people have had a really good spring calving as regards. A lot of numbers calved, and we've seen that from the databases that we have from ICBF. A lot more calves registered this time of year than there was this time last year. So look, it's going pretty good. We just need weather to get cows, calves, everything out. Like, everybody's fed up looking at animals in the shed at this stage, and to get the protein and the milk pumping, we really need to get out the grass a bit better than we are at the moment. Little bit of grazing going on here and there, but ground is only barely trafficable, even in dry land like where I am. And there's a bit of damage being done, and people trying to get out, but everyone's trying to do their best, I suppose, and lighten the workload.
Yeah. On the calf trade, we were speaking about calving there. Then it's obviously looked very, very, very strong calf trade. Probably the strongest calf trade we've ever had in the country, I would say, this year. Maybe if you go back with inflation, I'm not sure. But prices being paid for calves that I haven't seen before. Look, good news for your dairy farmer when you're selling them. Obviously, the beef farmer needs to be able to buy them, needs to be able to make a margin on them and sell them back. But it's a strong trade at the moment.
It is, I suppose. But then we had a scenario last year where I suppose the finished bullock, the calf only went up a small amount. So your finished bullock this time last year was probably up €1,000 on the year before, but the calf was only up maybe 100, 150. So I suppose there's a little bit of rebalancing going on, that the man selling the calf last year thought he wasn't fully rewarded. And, I suppose there's a little bit of rebalancing going on. There is some crazy prices out there, but you're always going to hear the exceptional prices. I think on average, they're probably up maybe 150 or that on last year, which is probably more of a rebalancing that, the price for the finished bullock at the end is pretty reasonably good. Now, it is slipped in the last number of weeks, and it can't afford to slip, especially with people who bought store cattle the back end of last year. But, I suppose there is a better rebalancing on what everybody's getting, because the man that's willing to get up, or the lady that's willing to get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to calf the cow, I suppose, needs to be rewarded. And the cost of keeping the cow, whether it's a dairy cow or a suckler cow, for 12 months of the year is pretty hefty too. So, it's thankfully, look at good calves and good stock are being rewarded. So it's always good if good stock are making good money. There's a few bob for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. A few different areas I want to touch on, Dennis. We'll start off with BVD programme support. So BVD programme supports have been increased by the Minister for Agriculture. Reviews on this one, Dennis?
Well, look, they're increased marginally, but I mean, if we look at what we're just talking about there, where the price of calves has gone in the last 2 years, the BVD programme has lagged way behind. Look, we welcome any increase and any support, but look at it, it's minuscule. It's a small fraction of what the actual value of the calf is. And look at a lot of people like myself got into the voluntary program for eliminating BVD back in 2012. That's 14 years ago. We were told we were going to be finished in 3 or 4 years, and here we are, whatever number of years that is, 14 years later, and we still haven't solved the problem and haven't eliminated BVD. So I think, look, at the government really needs to step in here, and farmers have been very patient sticking with this scheme, and I think they need to be properly compensated if if their PIs are turning up on their farm through no fault of their own, and what's I suppose even more frustrating, they're turning up on farms where nobody can explain to them where it has come from.
Yeah, just seeing the figures in front of me. So dairy breed animal under the programme increased from 160 to €200. You say a marginal increase. Beef bred animal, more significant increase from 220 to 320. So yeah, as you say, look, they are up, but marginal. We actually did a piece on BVD last week. Had Animal Health Ireland on, and they maintain they're coming to the end of it, but we just need to persevere and stick with it. But I suppose at this stage, we're at it so many years, we are looking forward to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose we had a meeting with Animal Health Ireland ourselves, and I suppose the frightening thing is, I suppose we don't fully understand how BVD is spread, and I think it can be spread a lot easier than we presumed 14 years ago when we started. We thought it was just animal to animal, but it seems to be an issue now of anybody sharing slurry tankers or calf boxes or cattle trailers and things like that. Like it is very prone to, it seems to be very easy to spread. So I suppose, look, we're learning, and I suppose the other thing that we've learned from it is that genotyping has showed up that a lot of animals in the country that are born are not registered to the correct mother. So initially, when somebody had a PI, only the mother of the animal was tested, and in a lot of cases that wasn't the correct mother. So we've a lot of learnings, I suppose, if we are going to take on any other program, which I doubt we will until this one is finished. But at least we've learned a lot from it, and I suppose how not to do it if we're taking on any program like IBR or whatever in the future.
Moving on, Dennis, blue tongue vaccine to be made available in smaller volumes is what you're calling for. Can you give us a little bit of background on this, please?
Well, it's a 1 ml shot, and I suppose, look, it's hugely important that everybody would sit down and consider should they be vaccinating their herd, especially dairy herds. I mean, look, we're all mad calving at the moment. We're probably, more than 3/4 way through the calving season in a lot of cases at this point. And I suppose, look at our real advantage is calving to grass and having grass to get into the cow's diet immediately after calving. Okay, it's not working out this year, but hopefully it will in the next couple of days or the next week or so that we get out full time to grass. But I suppose if you get blue tongue during the summer and your cows go and calf the 1st of May, planning to calf on the 1st of February, and you get blue tongue, you may get a spike in temperature and embryotic losses. And a cow who loses an embryo in June or July is very hard to get back into the cycle that she's going to be calving on the 1st of February ready for grass. So I think especially dairy farmers need to really consider, the cost of the vaccine somewhere north or south of €4 per shot. It's a 2-shot vaccination program, 3 weeks apart, and then it's 3 weeks after the second vaccination before the animal has immunity. And I suppose they don't have full immunity, but it lessens the effect and less embryotic deaths while they are vaccinated. So somebody who's thinking of starting breeding on the 1st of May would really want to be considering getting the first shot into those animals now, so that the second shot could be given, the first week or two of May, and it would have full cover by second week in April, and they would have full cover then by the start of the breeding season on the 1st of May. But there is an issue out there that it's a 1 ml shot is the dose, and it only comes in smallest size it comes in. Actually, the only size it comes in is 50 ml bottles. So you're buying a 50 dose pack each time at somewhere around €200. So you want to be making sure that you can use it all and that you have enough. So anybody with, would say, 60, 70, 80, 90 cows are really getting caught buying 2 bottles of the vaccine, and without the need for all that vaccine. So there's 2 elements here. There's an extra cost on the farmer because he has to buy way more, or she has to buy way more, and there's also waste of vaccine. So we're just calling, can this not be made available like lepto vaccine or any other vaccines, that there's maybe 10 shots, 20 shots and 50 shots, and make it more economical and cost effective for the farmer, and also less waste of vaccine.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can argue with that, Dennis. Practical, what you're calling for there. Another area we're looking at, and that is our old friend, enemy, what would we say, TB. Rules must be addressed immediately. So look, back towards the back end of last year, a big draft of rules, 27, 28 pages, new TB plan came out, and we were all kind of scratching our head as to what was going to happen, and I think we're still scratching our head.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a raft of new rules, I suppose we weren't happy with these because they're very prescriptive on what the farmer has to do, or they were very prescriptive at the time, and far less prescriptive on what everybody else in the sector, whether it be marts or dealers or the department themselves or vets or whatever. And we know it was very, very, very prescriptive exactly what happened with the farm, but not so much with anybody else. But even what those prescriptive measures that were enforced on the farmers, it's very hard to know when those measures are coming in. Will they be backdated? I have huge amount of people ringing me to say that they're locked up with TB. Am I going to be able to sell the cohort in my herd? And what is happening? When are the new rules coming in? As I said, are they being backdated retrospectively or not? So I think it's very stressful. It's a very stressful time on any person who's locked up with TB, but to have a scenario that you don't know whether the old rules or the new rules apply to you, or when the new rules are going to be implemented, and as I said, are they going to be backdated or not? So that's what we're calling for. There needs to be complete clarity, because there's no point. As I said, it's an extremely financially stressful workload, stressful, mentally stressed on farmers who are affected by TB, and the last thing you want then is lack of clarity as exactly where somebody stands as relation to whether the old rules or the new rules are being implemented, and even what the new rules mean. So all we're looking for is, I think, this thing of putting it in media and hearsay is not good enough. Every farmer in the country should be written to, and full list of the rules, when they come in and exactly when they apply to each situation. Clarity, I think, is certainly not too much to ask for.
Yeah, well, so we all know what we're doing. It's not what we're looking for. Lastly, Dennis, before we let you back to your work there this evening, milk prices, Lakeland's holding for February. Any increases in the coming months, would you think?
Well, there should be. The Dutch dairy quotes come out today with a substantial rise in butter. We're back up to about €4,700 a tonne, which is reflective of about 37.5 cents per litre for butter, skim milk powder combination. So the global dairy trade has rallied for the last number of probably the last 8 or 10 weeks. Dutch dairy quotes have also started to rally. Now, there is the caveat that there is still a large supply of milk out there, but we would be certainly hopeful that the sentiments are going in the right direction, and there should be scope for increase in milk price very shortly, if not already.
Very good, Dennis. We will leave you back to it, and hopefully the rest of the spring goes well for you, and we'll speak to you on the programme here in the coming months. Many thanks, Dennis.
Thanks a million, MJ, and safe farming to everybody.
Dennis Drennan there, president of the ICMSA, and busy as everyone is in the middle of March. We talked about calf prices there. Just from the Farmers Journal this week, I was looking at Bandon, the biggest sale they've had to date, 2,550 calves there last week. What a huge sale that was. But obviously flicking down through it, you can be pulling different weights and different numbers, but looking at Friesians, I see two pictures in front of me here. Friesian bulls, 60 kg, that's 4 in a bunch, and another bunch of 55 kg Friesian bulls, both in around a month old. First lot sold for $320, next lot sold for $315. So look, that's giving you an idea about that 3-week-old Friesian bull. Look, there's Holstein in them, in these ones I'm looking at, but they're not bad. They're square calves. They're healthy and they've been well fed. So in around that kind of 300, 320 seems to be the going. And then if we're looking across at Angus and Hereford, you are looking at in around 450 to 500 is where the Angus trade is at. Again, 1 month old Angus cross bull calves, 60 kilos again. So look, that's around what your average is on a month old. They sold for 480. Another similar bunch there, 520. And then when you're looking at the Charlies or the Blues, it's whatever you want. You can spin the wheel. I actually saw a blue calf being sold, a blue calf. Now it's going to be in the Winter Fair in Carrick probably in the future, but it was up on €2,000 in a mart. I got a video of it sent to me during the week. So look, that's the exception. But in general, calf trade's strong. Friesians 3 to 350, Angus Whiteheads 450 to 5 for that kind of month-old calf seems to be where we're at the moment, and huge numbers coming on stream there at the moment. 2,550 calves. What a calf sale that is down at Bandon this week. Now, coming up after the break, Lorcan Roach Kelly from the Farmers Journal is going to speak to me about fertiliser prices, oil prices, diesel prices, etc., as a result of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. So stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life on Midlands 103. Now we are moving on to agribusiness with Lorcan Roach Kelly from the Irish Farmers Journal on the line. Lorcan, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
No problem. Nice to be here, MJ.
It's the Middle East conflict, unfortunately, is what we're talking about. Lorcan, obviously we'd all prefer to not be speaking about this. However, having a huge effect on the global economy, and again, the word unfortunate is used, doesn't show any sign of abating at the moment.
No, it certainly doesn't. And this is the big problem with this conflict at the moment is the longer it goes on, the worse the effects are going to get. Like we're seeing, I suppose on Monday we saw oil hit $120 a barrel. And then Donald Trump in the afternoon sometimes said he thought the fight was almost over and the oil dropped down to $80-something a barrel. So it's very much, everyone's waiting for this to be over, but it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. And it really comes down to with this war is that Iran was part of its response to the attacks from Israel and the US. They have blocked the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically the end of the Persian Gulf, where 30% of the world's oil comes through, 30% of the world's nitrogen, which is really important for Irish farmers, and an awful lot of gas comes through, which that gas is used to make fertiliser in turn. So we've seen the price of oil, the price of diesel, and the price of fertiliser all jump up in the last 10 days.
So in relation to fertiliser, let's speak about them individually, Lorcan. So fertiliser, look, 11th of March now and just on the cusp of the spreading season. What are we working on at the moment? So just stocks that we have in the country?
Yeah, I think it's almost ironic that there's a lot of stock in the country. This was really good because a lot of farmers bought at the back end of 2005 because they were trying to get ahead of the new carbon tax the EU was putting on fertiliser. This was a known thing coming in the 1st of January, and a lot of farmers just bought stuff for the first half of the year in 2025 to avoid that extra €20 a tonne. And that has, ironically, worked out really well for lots of farmers. There is quite a bit of stock in the country coming into this. There was, I was talking to Sean Coyle, the CEO of Origin. He was saying that around 6 to 8 weeks of fertiliser at the start of the conflict. That was only 2 weeks ago now, so we could be down to 4 to 6 weeks of fertiliser. And also some of the blends are quite easy to get and some of the other blends are much harder to get. So it depends what you're looking at. But at the moment, we're far from a crisis. But again, to come up, we're saying the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get. But we have seen price increases quite rapidly in fertiliser. But we're nothing like where we were at the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war because Russia was such a huge source of fertiliser for Europe.
Yeah, well, you answered my question there just on price increases. We are still seeing some increases, but as you alluded to there, nothing out of this world yet. So at the moment we're shopping around. Is that the advice for farmers, or seeing what deal you can get from merchants?
See what you can get, but also if you maybe have some mix that you wouldn't normally use, if it's available, you may as well buy it because it's better than nothing. Because we don't know where the next one of supplies is coming from. And as I said, we haven't seen what we saw in the Russia-Ukraine war yet. But if this strikes on, there's a potential we'll get there.
Yeah, we spoke about oil prices. As you said, a day last week went from $120 back into the mid-80s. I see firms trading on oil prices at the moment. I read a headline on one of the business papers that normally on a day, if you made a mistake, it might cost you $10,000. This weather, if you make a mistake, it could cost you $2 million. It's fluctuating to that level at that quick an amount of time. And your front page tomorrow in the Farmers Journal leads with oil surge drives up silage costs. So green diesel, we'll talk about, Lorcan, prices have jumped from 95 cent a litre to over €1.45 a litre. Now that is a real jump.
That is a real jump. And you'll see it even if you go drive around past petrol pumps. You'll see that the price of diesel has gone way ahead of the price of petrol pumps. And that's there's two reasons for that. First of all, the supply of diesel into the country isn't great. A lot of the diesel comes from that region, and we're at the end of the home heating season. Where agri-diesel and home heating are basically the same product. So the stocks in Europe are quite low because we're coming to the end of the season. So people have stocks coming into the start of the winter and they've burnt through those stocks. It has been a bit of a cold winter in Europe, and we're seeing a bit of an extension of where it's going. So when it comes down to is it going to be green diesel or is it going to be home heating oil? Home heating oil is generally winning out. But again, like I say, the stocks are low, and it's kind of like, where's the next bit going to come from? We're seeing real rises in, like, Europe started importing quite a bit of diesel from the United States in the last couple of years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And we're seeing diesel prices in the US jump quite a lot as well. But of course, in all these things, like, there's also extra taxes and stuff in. So the taxes, if they're a percentage of the base price, that magnifies it further again. Again, these are short-term problems right now, but if this comes a longer-term problem, I say, like, Siley season is starting, like, slurry guys spreading slurry are already seeing it. So contractors are really feeling the pinch, and people that drive trucks around the country are also feeling the pinch. So it's, again, how long this lasts is how big a problem it's going to be. Right now, it hurts, but it could cause real pain in 2 months' time if we're still in the same position.
Yeah, I suppose when we think back on the Ukraine conflict, Lorcan, we were having this conversation a number of years ago, how long would it last? And, you know, on and on and on and on. And I suppose things got back to a level, if you will, during it. So I suppose if we look back on that, now it's not always wise to look back on history to predict the future, but it is a possibility that things may level out. You know, this may go and go and go.
It may. I think that the number one, what everyone wants is just for it to be over and for the shipping routes to open again. And okay, that's a good place to be. It'll still, even the damage done so far will take a month or two to wash through, because a lot of the oil production in the Middle East has been halted because they can't ship the oil out and they've nowhere to store it. Same with the gas production. But what we've seen is, like, we cut off Russian supply of fertilizer and oil. If we cut off the Middle East as well, we're down to kind of our third choice source of diesel, our third choice source of fertilizer, and that's where things become much more difficult, because you're not buying from the nearest place, you're not buying from the cheapest place, you're buying from wherever you can get it. So it will lead to kind of an extra cost built in permanently into the price if the things don't sort themselves out in the Middle East fairly soon. So fingers crossed that this is over sooner rather than later, and we can get back to normal trade, because otherwise there's going to be a kind of a permanent uplift in prices, like the 400 euros per tonne of fertiliser. Well, the normal price could be 550, 600 going forward.
Lastly, Lorcan, Dennis Drennan from the ICMSA was on with me just before the break, and we had just a word on milk prices. Dennis obviously hoping they're going to increase. Mentioned to him that Lakelands have held firm for February. What's your viewpoint on that from the global perspective, Lorcan? Are we going to see milk prices hold for another month or two? Are they going to start increasing?
Well, I think there's some hope that they will start increasing, because if you look at the global dairy trade auctions, the GT auctions in New Zealand, they've picked up quite strongly in that start of the year. And that's generally got a fairly good indication of where we'll be in maybe 2 or 3 months' time. Like, they're going to go back to the conflict in the Middle East. Things like that really disrupt global trade and disrupt global economics. And, like, if we're shipping a lot of our product to, say, China, it's more difficult to get there because you have to go around the south of Africa. And if you're shipping stuff to the US, and especially if you're shipping stuff to the US, like high value products like Kerrygold, and that's going to the US consumer that's suddenly seeing the price of petrol jump over there, they might kind of pull back on some consumer spending. So I think, like, the issue, nothing happened in the Middle East. I'd be very optimistic with the milk price. With what's happening in the Middle East right now, I'd be slightly more cautious.
Just on the Middle East conflict, Lorcan, before I let you go, speaking on dairy, do we put much produce into that region, the lines of our dairy exports?
It's kind of a steady 400 million a year for the last nearly decade now going in there. And it's like, you know, as for, I suppose, the overall amount of dairy export, it's not a huge amount, but still, 400 million is not to be sneezed at. And if these are products like, I suppose, fat-filled powders and stuff like that are going in there, they're kind of a product that we need a market for. And if you've got a market there that's working, then it's good to have it. Right now, I think I was talking to Arnua recently, and they're more concerned about their people working there than they are about the import-export market right now. But I'm sure they'll come around and have some statement going out very soon. But it is not an insignificant market.
Very good, Lorcan. Hopefully next time I'm speaking to you, we are back to a level of normal, fingers crossed, for everybody involved, including the poor people who are involved in the actual conflict itself. Lorcan, many thanks for joining me this evening on the programme.
Thanks for having me, MJ. Talk soon.
Lorcan Roach Kelly there from the Farmers Journal. And speaking of dairy products in the Middle East, Glenisk, I'm open to correction on this now, but back a number of years ago, you could have got a litre of Glenisk organic milk off a shop shelf, I should say, in the Middle East, in Dubai, on any given day of the week, because a pallet used to go out every morning on one of the was at Etihad, I think, every morning, a pallet of milk would go out and would be shipped around to the different high-end grocery shops out in Dubai. Whether that still occurred or not, obviously with the disruption now, it wouldn't be occurring, but I'm not sure if it was. I remember having a chat with Vincent Clery from Glenesk years and years ago, and he telling me that. I always thought it was a very, very interesting one. So that's part of that 400 million per year that gets exported to that region. Now, coming up after the break, I'm going to be talking about two events, grass events for beef farmers taking place in the Midlands. One is in Glasson, the other is in Tullamore. Nikki Kennedy from Teagasc is going to be speaking to me in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, we are having some difficulty to get Nikki Kennedy from Teagasc on the line. We're going to try her again in a moment, and when we do, we will get her. This gives me the opportunity to a couple of little areas I want to mention. One of those is the students from St Brendan's Community School in Burr in County Offaly. So you might remember these students from St Brendan's Community School joined me here on the programme about, what would it be, a year and 3-4 months ago, and they were talking about the competition, the Angus Schools competition, which they were entering at the time, and it was all about sustainable beef production. That was what they were speaking about on that given evening, and they went and they did their project, and last week was when they had to have their projects looked at, and they finished in second place. Of all the students that entered in the whole of Ireland, they finished in second place. So a big congratulations to Jack O'Mara, who's a neighbour of mine. Jack's only up the road. There's also Moya Guinan, Joseph Malachny, another Cool Dairy man, and Ben Young from Shinrone. They finished second in the All-Ireland Angus Schools competition. So a really, really big congratulations to them from the programme here. And their team was optimising sustainable animal nutrition for better beef Angus cattle. I actually have the prices of the animals in front of me here. So they slaughtered the animals back in August, and I'm looking down through the details here. So if we add our bonuses and whatnot into it, it was a base price of $7.60, and they got pretty much a 50-cent a bonus on top of that. So in around €8 per kilo. And they were on average 22 months, 20 months, 22 months, 22 months, 21 months. You can take maybe about 21 and a bit months for the animals, and they came in at hanging up 320 kilos, 317 kilos, 301 kilos, 280 kilos and 320 kilos. So again, in around 300 kilos you could take a touch with it, 8 or 10 kilos with it, and average value in around €2,500. So the 5 Angus cattle came in at just over €12,000. So I said at the time what an excellent competition this is, where young adults get to see the real world, where they have to go and buy the cattle, and then they have to buy the meal, milk replacer. They have to keep an eye on them from a veterinary perspective, keep them healthy, watch them, mind them. Obviously, it was one of the host farmers, the O'Maras in Cool Dairy, County Offaly. They took over the animals for the period of the competition. But great real world experience there, and congratulations to them on finishing second in that competition. Really, really great going. Absolutely hundreds and hundreds of young adults from all over the country go for that competition, and then to get to the final is even better again. Just another couple of news stories that have caught my eye. So the Farmers Journal tomorrow is going to lead with, as we said, oil surge drives up silage costs. That's their headline, but then it's all about North Cork creameries. So this is big news from down the south of the country. Not as big a news up in our area. Also, blue tongue vaccination is being spoken about. So we spoke about it there with Dennis Drennan at the start of the programme. And it is one on the Farmers Journal tomorrow, as well as urea prices. Again, covered that this evening, and more on the North Cork story. 2 or 3 different stories on that tomorrow. TAMS as well is a big one. If you are putting in for TAMS at the moment, it is getting chock-a-block. Busy with TAMS. It's being massively oversubscribed, and I don't really feel the funding is there for it. From what I see, it keeps getting kicked on to the next tranche. So if you're looking for TAMS funding at the moment, get in and be prepared to wait, is what I would say. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a break, and I'm going to aim to get Nikki on the phone in relation to the farm walks tomorrow. Hopefully I can. And we're also going to be having a chat with Patrick Brady. He's the Land Mobility Officer with the Land Mobility Service. So if you're thinking about leasing land long term, or if you're thinking about maybe going into some share farming, partnership agreement, whatever the case may be, the Land Mobility Service offer a free consultation. So you can ring them, they'll come and they'll chat to you, they'll explain the particulars of it to you all throughout the country. It's being run by Mockran Firm. It's on the go years and years now, but obviously busier and busier and busier it is getting. So stay tuned for that.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly, with branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Land mobility is what we're speaking about now, and we have the man in the know, and that is Patrick Brady from County Cavan. Isn't that right, Patrick?
That's correct.
Many thanks for joining me this evening, Patrick. Land Mobility Service is on the go. A long time, I suppose. Is it maybe 10 years on the go, Patrick, at this stage?
Yeah, it's just coming 12 years this year now. It started initially in 2014 as a pilot programme, so it's really kicked off now probably since 2017, 2018, and it's growing year on year, thank God, yeah.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with it, Patrick, people might have heard it, they might have come across it maybe on the Farmers Journal or other media outlets here and there. They might be familiar with the name, but they might know exactly what it is or what you do. I suppose for the uninitiated, what exactly is the Land Mobility Service, Patrick?
So the Land Mobility Service is a private and confidential service initially set up by Mockran Firma to assist, we'll say, young trained farmers into farming. So a good lot of our clients at the minute would have maybe non-farming background and looking to get into farming situations, be it beef, tillage, dairy, whatever the enterprise may be. So Mockran Firma set it up back in 2014 along with some of the major co-ops. It ran as a pilot programme then for 3 years, and then after the 3-year programme it was hugely successful within probably the southern part of the country. And then they decided then to roll it out nationwide then in 2017, and it's going year on year since. So we're there to help and assist young trained farmers and people looking at their options maybe as time goes by, what they want to do with their farm, if they have a successor, if they don't have a successor, maybe the new models like maybe share farming, does it suit their farm, does it not? And then obviously land leasing is a big one too. So it obviously helps with the tax incentives we have in Ireland. So it's a huge variation in what we do, but I suppose we're there to help and support farmers is probably what our main aim is.
Yeah, it's massively topical now, though, Patrick. Last couple of years we've heard more and more about intergenerational renewal, and there was that big, huge document published back around the time of the ploughing, a couple of 100 pages, yeah. I think. I had a flick down through it, and it was just, it's such a topic now that is on the tips of people's tongues, and we know the average demographic of farmers 59, so farmers are getting older, and that next generation is the issue. So this is what we need, and this is what we need to look at, and this is the way it can be facilitated. At the end of the day, land is going to have to be farmed regardless of who farms it.
Yep, that's true. Look at it, and depending on what enterprise it be, look at you have solar, you have all different enterprises coming into it now, like, so it will be farmed. I suppose it's how it's farmed and who farms it. That's the biggest issue, like, and I suppose we're there trying to encourage probably not the transfer, but the aid of someone. So look, we'd have a good lot of people that maybe kids are abroad or they have family, but maybe they're just not interested in farming, but they want to see the farm progress at whatever enterprise it's at. And, they want to see the farm progress, so we're there to help with that, with the young trained farmers that we have, and obviously the established operators that have maybe kids of their own that are looking to push things on a bit.
Yeah, if we look at maybe two potential farmers then, so say farmer A has a child or children of their own who are interested in farming, and farmer B then possibly could be a bachelor or an individual who has no successor, might be married, but just may not have children or may not have someone interested in it. So farmer A, I suppose, in times gone by, there was a thing where land had to be transferred by the time the child was 35 to avail of the stamp duty. We always had this in our head, 35 was the one, and it had to be moved over by 35 regardless of what was going on. And sometimes this suited farmers and sometimes it didn't, because they may not have been of an age to generate enough income themselves from old age pension or whatnot to live. And this age of 35 kind of, was set in stone, but it didn't really work. But over the past number of years, I've seen more and more partnership agreements between, be it a father and son or father and daughter, whatever the case may be, where you see a gentle movement of assets from one generation to another. These are working really well, Patrick.
Yeah, look at the probably leading to the registered farm partnerships. Look at they're aiding it exceptionally well. It's very well tailored for that succession part and give them a chance to maybe gain some stock or that in their own right, or machinery, whatever it is. And there's great incentives there for it. Like, there's, the way I look at it, there's no disadvantage to go into a registered farm partnership. And if you're lucky enough to be a landowner and have children that is interested in farming, you're there to guide them, give them some knowledge, and while letting them probably do their own thing as well. So there is great incentives there for us, and we do an awful lot of like registered farm partnerships with the like of household partnerships, they call them, so father to son or mother to daughter or stuff like that. And they're very popular. They work very well. They give the young person a great chance. They let them get going, and with the Department of Agriculture and the different schemes, they can avail of all these different schemes that's going. And there's no disincentive for them. So they get the ball rolling. They get on the herd number. They're on the bank account, so they have some responsibility within the farm. So that they really are able to push it on a little bit.
Yeah. So working very well. And I hear very positive things about them. From anyone I speak to, when I'm speaking to different farmers, they always say that they work well, and there's, as you say, responsibility there, and people have trust. There's trust to the other people to be named on it, and you can get double TAMs and whatnot as well. So there's a grant from the department for setting them up as well. Like, so look, they're a big believer in it too. Like, or they wouldn't be putting so much emphasis on the grants available for it. Like, so there's a 50% grant at setting up a registered farm partnership, and that's a big incentive too for people, like, because by the time you go and meet maybe your accountant and solicitor and tell them what you're thinking of doing, like, it eats into money, like, and then obviously the cost of setting up a registered farm partnership, and you get a grant in aid in setting it up, isn't it a huge start? 100%. If we look across then, Patrick, to the farmer that has no successor and he or she is wondering, what to do and how to, I suppose, keep the farm maybe or generate income from it and whatnot. Obviously, look, you alluded to long-term leasing and how it's really beneficial for moving land. You also have, we speak about long-term leasing in a moment, but you also do have the potential of some sort of collaborative farming arrangement there with maybe somebody. You mightn't be related to them, but they might be interested in farming with you.
Exactly, yeah. And it's probably going to come more common as time goes on. Farm size probably is the biggest constraint to, say, collaborative farming. Obviously, the smaller the farm you have, the harder it is for both people to gain an income. But I suppose our kind of role model one we have is the Young Farmer of the Year in 24, Christopher Cahill. Like, he went into a registered farm partnership with Tony McCormick. Again, Tony McCormick had children, but maybe weren't at the age or weren't interested at the time. And he says, how can I prolong my time farming? So we looked at different options, and he said, look, he had a bit of scale and a bit of scope, and he was able to have the vision maybe to see a future for his farm, because he worked off farm as well. And Christopher Cahill has a non-farming background. Obviously had a big interest in it and worked in maybe the agri end of it, but didn't come from a family farm. And they pushed on. I know it's a dairy farm, but they're still milking maybe 220 or 230 cows, like where Tony was initially milking 120, and it probably gave Tony a new lease of life, and it gave Christopher an opportunity then to maybe get going in his own right. And both of them are very happy now, and they're probably 3 or 4 years into it. But they're the type of examples that we come more and more across. Is once there's a bit of scale on a farm, you have probably more options than you do if the farm's viability.
Well, I suppose, look, it stands to reason, Patrick, doesn't really? The bigger the farm, the more opportunities. That model of the share farming would be something we would have heard about from our Southern Hemisphere colleagues down in New Zealand for years. You'd often hear of, a young Irish man or woman going down there working hard, maybe getting a share of cows, going on buying some land and moving on and on and on. And it seems to be that the model now is transferring to us across from that part of the world.
Yeah, so look, we're mimicking kind of what they do. Obviously, theirs is a little bit different because they at the end of some of these partnerships, they're probably owning part of the land or that. Whereas I can see it even now, people are asking the questions like in 10 years' time, if this share goes, like, is there any way that we can facilitate them to buy into this farm if that comes to be? So they are getting closer to it, I suppose. It's just a huge cost, the financial cost of getting started, never mind buying land at the minute. Like if you're a young trained farmer and you're trying to get up and running on your own, obviously the cost of stock is huge now. And then opportunities, like any opportunity you take on, there's capital investment to be done on it. Like, and I suppose you need to be setting yourself up. Look, if you were travelling and you come back in your mid-20s and you think, right, this is the career I want to go, you need to have a little bit of a kitty behind you that you're able to bankroll yourself for a little while to get up and running, because it takes a lot of money now. And obviously with the price of stock for the last 18 months, like it's given that young trained farmer probably harder to get in as of just simply because of financial costs. Like.
Yeah, but it's just, I suppose, isn't that the market we're in at the moment, Patrick? The last kind of part of it, if you will, then we talked about the farm partnerships between father and son or father and daughter, share farming then between a farmer and a stranger in blood, if you will. And then for maybe the older farmer, he may not have a huge holding and he wants to cut down on stock and he's looking at the long-term leasing, a really, really viable option, a great pension pot. He's holding on to his capital, to his asset, and tax-free income there. It really is a super one, Patrick.
It is a super one. Like, look at them, we're very unique across Europe with that. Like, a load of our counterparts would love to have some sort of a system to aid that land coming available for leasing. And it is great, like, and in fairness to our own government and that, they keep backing this long-term leasing, like, and it's huge benefit for a landowner looking to lease, like, and it gives them maybe that little push that he says, well, if I can get X amount of money tax-free, sure, it's a better opportunity for me. And it gives, on the flip side of that, the person that's leasing it, they have income security, or they have security of tenure for a period of time that they can plan their own developments on their own farm. So it works well in both ways. So look at that. I'd be hoping that it'll stay there for another while.
Oh, absolutely. As I say, only country in Europe doing it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that. Patrick, just out of time, I could stay speaking to you all evening. I could speak to you next week again. We could stay going and going. But a great snapshot there into what you do. Your website is landmobility.ie.
Landmobility.ie, yeah.
And people can just log on, pick up the phone, give you a buzz.
Pick up the phone, yeah. The contacts are on it and the emails are on it. So look, it's just, don't be afraid to give us a call. We're there and we're there to help in any way we can.
Lovely stuff. Many thanks, Patrick. We'll speak to you again in the programme.
Perfect. Thanks, MJ.
Patrick Brady there from the Land Mobility Service. And as Patrick said, pick up the phone, give a buzz if you're interested in any of those. And look, there's lots of other, your Teagasc advisor or your ag advisor can set you on the right road if you are interested in things like that. But if you are getting older and you're wondering what to do, there's so many options out there now. So don't despair in any way, shape or form, or think you have to stay farming or slogging for years and years. There's younger people who are interested. There's land leasing, there's share farming, partnerships. There's so many different avenues out there where you still get to hold on to your asset, hold on to your land, and you can still farm along with somebody. Now, I'm nearly out of time. Unfortunately, I couldn't get Nicky Kennedy on the phone to speak about the early spring workshops. I'll just give him a quick mention here. Thursday, 12th of March, that's tomorrow at 2 p.m. There is one on the farm of William Connaughton in Glasson in Athlone. He's a suckler farmer. And then Friday, 13th of March, 11 a.m, Conor McGrath in Clonminch in Tullamore. He is the man with Grass on the Bypass, as it's called. You would know it if you're driving past Tullamore, the Clonminch exit. You see it there, I think about 23, 24 acres there in a block where there are store cattle and they're grazed from roughly now through to the back end of the year. Always done in a very efficient manner. So I'd say that's going to get lots of people. If you're interested in either of those, just contact either of the Teagasc offices and they can give you more information, or indeed log on to Early Spring Grass Workshop and look, you can turn up at them also. These events are always just, there's no tickets or anything. You can just pop in and have a look. They run for about an hour and 15 minutes. That's it for this evening's programme. Quick hour as always. I'd like to thank all my guests here over the course of the programme. Dennis Drennan, Lorcan Roach Kelly and Patrick Brady from the Land Mobility Service. Show is repeated on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. I'll be back with you next Wednesday evening, which will be the 18th. Day after St. Patrick's Day, and we will do it all again in a week's time. If you want to catch us on a podcast, type in MJ space Clery, Clery, and we'll pop up wherever you get your podcasts. As I say now, weekly, we're also on YouTube if you want to listen to the programme there. So have a safe week farming, and we will talk to you in 7 days' time. Good night.